What was the worst thing your guest did when they took make yourself at home very literally? My brother's best friend came to live with us for a few months because he wanted to move back to our state. My parents agreed because he was supposed to go to college and they believe college education is important. Well, 8 years later and he is still there. All my parents' children have moved out, but for some reason my brother's best friend is still living there. My husband's old friend stayed with us for 2 weeks while we were living in Japan. He was very smug and irritating. An instant expert on Japan after a few days, when we had been living there for 2 years. Finally he left on a Friday. My husband and I had separate plans on Saturday. I returned in the afternoon to an unlocked door and the sound of the TV. I thought hubby had returned early. Nope, it was old friend, thinking we had gone for the weekend. He had broken into our apartment for an extra 2-night stay. You weren't supposed to be here, he protested, and he refused to leave until my husband came back home and told old pal personally that he had overstayed his welcome. What a way to abuse a friend's hospitality and sever a friendship forevermore. My ex-husband had a less than savory friend. He walked into my home once, helped himself to my fridge without asking, and then when he got himself some silverware, had the audacity to insult it and say it looked like something a grandmother would have. Well, yes it does, since it's hers and she gave it to me. Another time he went to my Mill's house when we told him we didn't want to hang out. We weren't even home yet. He came in, sat down, ordered a pizza that he refused to share with my Mill or Bill, and just sat there watching TV for 2 hours until we got back from whatever we were doing. He was a grade A butthole. Freaking hate you, Craig. Frick you, Craig. My father-in-law was staying with us for a month. He lived in Oman. The spare room was an office with a sofa bed in so it could double up for guests. He bought a double bed and got rid of the sofa bed. I lost my office. What a tea. You must have been so relieved when he left. Tell me he left. My relative stayed with my grandma and proceeded to burn the house to the ground by deciding to have a bonfire 3 feet from the side of the house. Slightly related, a family member's friends were staying at his place he'd inherited from a dead relative while he was in jail, and they caught the place on fire, making started a kitchen fire by cooking spaghetti in cake pans without water. When I heard the fire alarm ring, I ran to the kitchen to find him looking over the stove trying to blow out the fire with his mouth, like foo-foo, basically stoking the flames. I slid the flaming cake pan into the sink and doused it in water to put it out. Me yelling at him asking WTF he was doing. His only defense: it woulda worked. No mother, it clearly wasn't working. I realized this day he started abusing oxys and was so high he had no idea what he was doing. Sad story really. Rearranged my kitchen. That be my Mill trying to shove the Le Creuset onto the top shelf. Mom, it's too heavy. My wife 3 days ago, tasked with feeding her friend's cat while they're away for a week. They said help yourself to whatever you like. She came home with their waffle maker. Pretty sure it meant she could score a couple of their Tim Tams, not make off with their appliances. This one made me chuckle. Most other stories in this thread made me angry. Dinner guest asked to stay overnight because of the snow, which wasn't forecasted until much later that night. Spouse and I agreed as we didn't have work the next day, but guest did, and at 7:30 in the morning he was freaking out because we hadn't shoveled the driveway for him yet. How am I supposed to get to work on time? The audacity. I had guests turn the pool heater on in February and not turn it off or tell me it was on. I noticed steam coming off the pool a week later and it was 90F. The bill was just under $1,000. When I was renting an apartment and my roommate had a GF staying over every day for 2 months. She would take a 2-hour bath and would always not flush as she was saving water. She also would cook and then not clean up after. Her food were always terrible. Another roommate's GF visited for a few hours. Nice girl gave us food and was a good guest. The leech complained how she better not stay any longer because we don't like freeloaders. Her hypocrisy was amazing. She also refused to weigh hygiene products, so roommate's bed was bloody and gross. He had to get a new mattress. When they finally broke up, she asked us to let her live there because her parents had kicked her out for trying to sell their house. When they finally broke up, she asked us to let her live there because her parents had kicked her out for trying to sell their house. I'm not sure if this is more arrogant or stupid. An in-law took about a 28-minute shower after I explained we were in the middle of a drought and that our well was dangerously low. I'm assuming it was going to be a 30-minute shower, but we ran out of water. I wonder if that was intentional. I can't say why, but you'd think saying hey my house runs on well water and an extensive shower is probably going to use the last of it up would make any rational person put away their plans for a long shower. Literally tried to move in. Had an old friend that was in town and I offered to let her stay here for a week instead of getting a hotel. A week turned into 2, which became a month. When I confronted her and asked when her new place would be ready, she said she thought she could just stay, since she had all of her stuff and was here for over 2 weeks. Even the cops wouldn't take her away. Had to formally evict her. I let a friend and her dog stay at my house over the weekend while I was away. She left my kitchen a disaster, the back door unlocked, and best of all, fleas. I had asked her directly if her dog was on flea prevention and she assured me it was. After I was swarmed with fleas in my living room, I questioned her again and she admitted that the flea prevention she was giving the dog were yeast and garlic tablets. She made no offer to help me treat the house or reimburse me. She was not invited back. ETA, I didn't know garlic was toxic to dogs. So thank y'all. Now I know to be extra careful with food prep. I think I remember the friend quitting those pills after this incident, but I'm not sure. She and I are no longer friends. Shocker. But I do hope the dog is okay. So hippie remedies found on the internet are not an acceptable substitute for veterinary care and advice. Oh, frick, right off with that natural remedy crap. If I have parasites, get me some toxic butt chemicals to kill those I am all for natural and green until there are creatures living upon me or my family. After a bedbug scare I was almost ready to say frick the bird's eggs and get me some DDT. Came home, sitting in his boxes on my kitchen counter washing his feet and trimming toenails, and my sink has got to take the cake. I read it as trimming toenails into the cake and freaked out at the ruining of a precious cake. My mother's friend and her children went on a vacation with us. We were sitting in the common area of the place we were staying at and started chatting to some strangers there. The friend's kid got up, walked to the coffee table, and just opened the stranger's bag of chips and started eating. Kids never asked first. Now, kids are stupid. He was 14 but still a kid. The issue was that his mother did absolutely freaking nothing. She watched him get up, watched him open it, and watched him start eating. One of the strangers just paused for a second. UHH. Sure, feel free to eat some. As he is moving in said, by the way, I have a dog, I hope that's fine, as his dog runs into my house and jumps on my couch. Never once cleaned up the dog's poop from the backyard. Sits right next to me on the couch when my husband was at work and asks me to restart what I was watching from the beginning so he can join. Complains I was using the second master for my office when the last friend who stayed with us and paid rent had it as his room. His stay was cut short. Please tell us how that conversation went. A friend of my's showed up after 11 PM on a weeknight with some other random friend. Came home after 11 PM every night of the stay knowing we had to work in the morning. They weren't quiet either. Home and ready to party and trying to get us to drink. Spilled things and didn't wipe up. Left glassware everywhere. Used the fancy dishes. And never picked up after themselves. Never asked me anything about myself. Insulted my restaurant recommendations. Cheered against my team for no reason when I had the game on. And made a comment about how there must be a lot of gay stuff going on in my brother's rehab stay. Never stopped talking and bloviating. And was just obnoxious to be around. My so was P when they left, but now doesn't seem to understand why I don't want them back. Bloviate. To talk at length, especially in an inflated or empty way. Taught me a new word today. Appreciate ya, Royal. My dad's best friend and his family stayed with us for 2 weeks during the summer. I was 9 and my sister was a newborn. Literally 2 weeks old when they arrived. Already off to a bad start. The wife kept putting my sister onto her stomach while she slept. When no one was looking. When my mum finally caught the wife doing it and told her to stop because the risk of cot death, she replied, I did it with all my kids and they turned out fine. She continued doing it. The wife would only cook sausages and mashed potatoes for dinner. and get angry at my mum when she cooked something different. She also heavily restricted anyone in the kitchen. I had to ask permission to get a cup of water or eat a biscuit from the pantry. Dad's friend would tell us what activity we were allowed to do. For example, you must play in the backyard right now. Don't come inside unless you need the toilet. You must watch TV right now. I don't care if you're not interested in the movie. Just shut up and watch. I don't understand why your parents didn't kick them out when the mother was risking the baby's health tbh. They were house sitting for 2 or 3 weeks, I can't remember now. But when we got home, they rearranged almost all the furniture. Most of it was just moving things back, but they pushed an old teacher's desk we had down into the basement. One of those huge metal monstrosities that weighs a ton. Well, there was literally no way to get it back up those stairs without some kind of machine I couldn't afford. So that thing stayed in the basement and was sold with the home. They also damaged a recliner so it didn't recline anymore and claimed they didn't. I make all of my sandwiches for the week on Sunday night and put them in the refrigerator. An acquaintance was over with a group of friends, and he went into the kitchen for a minute. He came back with one of my pre-made sandwiches. It's not necessarily about the food per se. He could have easily made his own sandwich if he wanted to, but what would possess someone to take a pre-made sandwich from their host's refrigerator without asking? This became my own personal Seinfeld episode. It's a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode plot point. Am I allowed to talk about my current guests? My flatmate's friend has been here for nearly 6 days. They've used my food, expensive shower products, let their child run screaming up and down the hallway for hours without stopping, and, me being petty, looked at me like I am a weirdo for being out in my own kitchen. They were supposed to leave yesterday. I'm very annoyed. Just ask them what time they are leaving today. My grandma offered to make him a sandwich. A little while later he said, "Where is that sandwich coming from? South Dakota?" Guess he thought it was taking too long. 35 years later I still think about that butthole sometimes and wonder WTF was he thinking? Just how could you say that to someone's grandmother you just met? He was my cousin's dorky boyfriend's friend. I was about 13 new and appalled. My grandmother was the sweetest woman and an amazing hostess. In Germany, we don't say make yourself at home, we say feel as if you're at home. I like to add but don't act like it. That's a good distinction. German efficiency. I came home from work that day and my homie was there, with his girl and 4 kids 4 weeks in my 1000 SW foot house. Ate all my food and wouldn't leave me alone until I drove them 10 hours away to some family's house. What I'm hearing is that they ate all your cheese and then asked to be relocated to a house that might still have some cheese left in it. I let my sister stay at my house after her breakup. She told my 5-year-old to clean up his freaking bath toys. They were in his bathroom that we let her use as well. That's not even the half of it. I don't speak to her anymore. She told my 5-year-old to clean up his freaking bath toys. Clean up your freaking act and get the frick out of my house. I've had relatives eat all the food in our fridge, use our house to play host to people they know in our city. They also broke our screen door and had no remorse whatsoever. It was presented as though your screen door is broken. My dad backed up the toilet in the bathroom flooded, told me about it, but didn't bother to help clean it up. My nephew who we were helping out sold the car we let him use, got on a plane and left town. We didn't even know he left until we received a Facebook message from some random guy saying my nephew told him to contact us for the pink slip. He left his bedroom filled with cigarette butts, empty beer cans, and old vapes. I guess the worst part was taking off without saying goodbye. My children were pretty hurt. Whoa, after reading all these horror stories I feel a little awkward complaining about my mother-in-law. When she comes to visit she takes over the kitchen, cooks meals, cleans up, and won't even let me get my own snacks. She runs to the fridge and hands them to me. That be, send her to my house. I'll take her off your hands and set her straight. I took in a niece because she was kicked out by her landlord and her roommates had nothing good to say about her. I only gave her a month and she left the guest bedroom a total mess, like someone was murdered there. I had to have professional cleaners come in. The carpet was gone as she threw all her trash on the floor. She left her tampons and dirty clothes everywhere. She even had bowls of food that had grown their own ecosystem. I took pictures of it all, and when relatives chewed me out for kicking her out, I'd send them the photos. Another was a relative that stayed for 2 days, ate all my food while I was away for a few hours. That ate whole chicken and 12 slices of cheesecake. Dude broke my toilet. He has diabetes now and has liver and kidney problems. We have a 9-year-old little girl from down the street who's friends with my daughter. She comes to our house at least every other day, and mostly just shows up. She has an opinion about everything we do. My wife or I cannot make a move without feeling judged, or receiving some advice I would never expect from a 9-year-old, ranging from how messy our house is, to how we spend our money, and she talks back as much as my own kids. It mostly makes us laugh. Mostly. She probably has a very critical parent-ess. I let a friend stay with me while he was in town. At the time I lived with 4 other people. He woke up in the morning and just started rummaging through the cupboards and was eating my roommate's food. When I asked him why he would do that, and that it wasn't even mine to offer to him, he said he would want guests at his house to feel comfortable just eating the food in the cupboards. Go round to his house just to eat all his food. My parents asked a neighbor to house sit for them while they were away for the week. She lived across the street from them and they had house sat dog sit for her a few times over the course of the year for free. Remember this for later, because they're friends with her and didn't expect to be paid. She agreed to do this for them in exchange for them doing it for her. They told her she was welcome to hang out there if she wanted to, and they left some snack food for her and left a few drinks in the fridge, that sort of thing. And all she had to do was take in their mail. Feed their 2 cats twice a day, and they asked if she could clean the kitty litter twice while they were gone. So they told her, make yourself at home and feel free to hang out there if you would like. They get back, and she had literally been living there all week. Their bed was left unmade with dirty sheets, there were dirty towels in the bathroom, dirty dishes in the sink and in the dishwasher that she didn't clean. She ate all the snacks, which was fine, but she was also clearly using a bunch of other stuff in their pantry to make meals with. Instead of cleaning out the kitty litter, which she knew how to do, she just dumped a giant bag of kitty litter over top of the old, crap-filled litter to the point that it had overflowed and she just didn't clean it up. My parents didn't say anything. They said thank you to her and said they'd see her later. She came over a couple days later and asked where her $100 was that they owe her for house sitting. My parents were like WTF and reminded her of the discussion they had. She demanded they give her that money because that's what was owed to her for all that she did. My mom gave her $50 and told her she wasn't giving her another cent, and that she won't be house sitting or dog sitting for her anymore. They still talk here and there, but that kinda put a damper on their friendship. My parents' house, but I let my buddy in high school stay a night because he was kicked out of his house and didn't want to stay in the park. I guess he was afraid to go upstairs when my parents woke up, so he pee in the trash barrel. So freaking gross having to dump that out. My college freshman dormmate would pee in an apple juice container in his closet and rinse it out when he went to take a shower. I don't understand why people are scared of peeing toilets. A friend of mine stayed over for the weekend. He told me to leave my own room so he could frick his girlfriend on my bed. I told him no, so he waited till I left and did it anyway. Left me a nice big wet spot on my sheets. Threw him out and never let him come over again. Had a guy stay with me for about a month from Florida because he met a girl online, which turned into a big catfishing debacle. We had mutual friends and he was waiting for his parents to wire him money for a plane ticket back home. And I didn't want the dummy to be out on the streets. The entire time he stayed with me, 90% of his daily caloric intake was eating slices of American cheese out of the fridge. Hey, I just cooked a big meal. You hungry? No thanks. I'm okay. Goes to the fridge for cheese. Probably went through 24 packs of cheese in that 1 month. Like, not a huge deal, but I'm tired of constantly buying cheese, you weird frick. The only positive was that when he went home, he left a $200 plus pair of nice Oakleys at my house. Wore them for a few years. Payment for all the cheese. My parents helped remodel my house and convinced my husband to gut everything and start over. In thousands of credit card debt because of it now. They also went completely against our wishes several times and made changes to plans without consulting us. They would threaten to stop helping us if we mentioned moving into our own home. It took us a year and 2 weeks from the day we purchased till the day we finally got moved it. Another one. Didn't happen to me but to my parents. My dad had a cousin who was schizophrenic and was obviously a little weird because of that, and he used to come over every Friday, Saturday and sometimes Sundays for dinner with us. One time my dad made some of that good KC style barbecue with ribs and baked beans. Cousin's digestive system couldn't handle it and he went to the bathroom and released explosive shoots absolutely everywhere and didn't tell anyone. Just went straight back to watching the Chiefs game in my dad's man cave shed with my parents. My sister walked in after him and told me. I looked and was shocked, and then we went to the man cave to tell my mom because my sister was about to pee herself and we weren't trying to clean it. I was only probably 12 or 13 and she was probably 9 or 10. Imagine our hysterical laughing because he was grunting and crapping up a storm and we could hear him. Mom didn't believe us. We finally convinced her to come into the house to see it and she screamed bloody murder. She got my dad and he cleaned it all up and asked his cousin why he didn't tell anyone. Cousin's response: beans make me fart. Sauce makes me shart. Imagine being like 13 and 10 years old and having to keep a straight face when that came out of his mouth because we didn't want to make him feel bad. As soon as he left we were rolling though. Beans make me fart. Sauce makes me shart. But I eat them anyway because I'm smart. My grandpa had driven over to our house for a few months to get away from his insane wife. In turn, he was fixing up our disgusting bathroom. He was perfectly fine. But when it came time to fix some of the plumbing, he decided to play it safe and find someone to do it instead. Luckily, my mom found some guy on Nextdoor willing to do it for free. The first red flag should have been when he showed up around 6 hours after he agreed to. It was around 8 at this point, but my grandpa was just grateful to get someone to help him who wasn't his ex-wife, my grandma, yelling at him for every perceived mistake. But this man, acting wide awake and just a wee bit manic, stayed till 4 AM. 4 AM. This guy worked with my absolutely exhausted grandpa until the sun was coming up, only taking a tiny break to wolf down a sandwich my grandma had made, complaining the entire time. We highly believe he was on some sort of drugs. The cherry on top, when he finally left, my mom took the time to inform me that, hey, I think that was your great uncle. You see, I've never met my biological father, but this man was apparently the spitting image of him. They also were both Italian plumbers, and if I believe correctly, completely insane. The people I'm related to. I was in a gigging band with some dudes. I was the bass player, the manager, the roadie, the sound guy, and the financier. My best friend was the drummer, and he was the lead singer and guitarist. D couldn't keep his D in his pants, so his wife kicked him out. He had fricked someone at work, so he lost his job. I let him stay with me. His wife destroyed all his clothes, so I spent about $500 on clothes for him, which he said he would pay back. I also bought his kids Christmas presents, which he said he'd pay back. A couple weeks later, stuff suspiciously started turning up missing, but it was all minor stuff and we had parties from time to time, so I wasn't sure if it was D. About a month later, I booked us a significant gig. It was a music festival and we got 2 hours, twice a day, for 2 days. It paid way more than any other gig we ever had and it would have paid for some new gear we needed. 2 days before the gig, I come home and D is gone. Later that night, we're supposed to practice. D doesn't show. I go to practice and all the microphone and guitars are gone. D freaking hawked them and went on a rim spree. Apparently, his new GF got him into it and he went off the deep end. 2 days later, he got in a fight and broke a guy's neck. He went to prison. Because I had spent so much on his clothes and kids, I didn't have enough to get the guitars out of Hawk and his new life pretty much ensured that he was never paying me back. I lost the guitars and mics to resale on the Hawk loan. End of band. That freaking bastard. I still get mad about it. If the equipment wasn't his to sell, you might have been able to get it back from the pawn shop with a police report. Depends on area and laws I suppose. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.